Nigeria has received different tranches of recovered loot from foreign countries in the last few years. Efforts are still on to repatriate some other looted funds. A report by the Monitoring Transparency and Accountability in the Management of Returned Assets mantra on utilization of funds last week disclosed that more than 700,000 households of poor and vulnerable Nigerians received 16.3 billion naira in 4 months, January to April, from recovered $322.5 million Abacha Loot. Citizens are calling for the judicious use of these funds as well as accountability of recovered funds. Joining me via Skype from Edo State is David Ogala, Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice and Senior Advisor, Corruption and Governance to Africa Bar Association. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much.
Now, according to reports, over 700,000 households of the poor and vulnerable have received monies between January and for 4 months now, January till February, March, April, and in some states of the country. Is this a judicious use of the monies repatriated? You have been monitoring the dispensing of this monies. Talk to us. How so?
Yes, thanks very much. First, again, I want to thank TVC for the opportunity to also share our recent report, which we just released last week. The mantra report, which again provides opportunity for citizens to be aware of how the restituted Abacha 2, which is the $322.5 million, is being utilized in Nigeria. First, the report provides details on number of households that have benefited from the Abacha Loot, which was used during the COVID-19 palliative as a result of the president's intervention. The president announced in the wake of COVID-19 that the Abacha Loot should be used as COVID-19 palliative. And that again made it possible for the National Cash Transfer Office to pay 4 months. Before now, they were paying 2 months. So from January to March, April was paid. That makes it 20,000 naira per each beneficiary. And in each household who benefited from this, we did a spot check across the entire country, and this led to this report we have produced. And what we have seen so far, the total number of enrolled households on the National Beneficiary Register in the 21st states.
For some to part with some of the allowances, perhaps you might want to make Nigerians better understand some of these challenges that were faced while you were monitoring the process, the challenges that beneficiaries faced and you also faced while monitoring the process.
Well, first again, in our report, which we have also shared with TVC, first, there are key observations and follow up with recommendations. And key among that observation was the issue, as you know, we were in a trying period, the COVID period. It was not planned for, it was unexpected, and it was a key critical issue in the process of trying to disburse the money to the beneficiary across the country. In our observation, we observed that there were issues of intimidations of beneficiary by community leaders to part with some amount of the allowances for the community and themselves for enrolling them in the program. The cooperative organizations were getting between 2,000 to 4,000 from beneficiary. And then we also have the poor understanding of the cash transfer programs and the evolution of the social register. People were not very aware how they get registered, so that raised a lot of questions. Beneficiaries were paid 20,000 naira each, covering January to April, like I mentioned earlier on before. And then the issue of National Assembly, not very conversant with the social register. That raised an issue between the presidency and the National Assembly. Was also a very hot issues during the period. And payment agents were short of cash in some instances. And we also had this situation where in communities, deductions of various forms ranging from 500 to 2,000 were also discovered. And CCT officials informed DSS, and corporate was arrested and ordered to refund the money within 24 hours. So those are where the issues are, where some of the key recommendations we made were in future payment, issues of crowd management, delay and lateness in payment, ineffective COVID-19 measures around payment location should be put into consideration. And great emphasis should be placed to public awareness around the grievance mechanism, because people are not aware that if, for example, your name appear in the Nigerian Social Register and you were supposed to benefit and you didn't benefit, you do have a framework they call the grievance mechanism to report your case. And areas where there are discrepancy, we can also use the grievance mechanism. So there need to be public awareness about the grievance mechanism. Then the National Cash Transfer Office should critically and regularly review and clean up the payment register to ensure that dead persons are delisted. Then strong CSO advocacy to ensure that this imbalance between the North and South can be addressed. For example, there is need to be CSO strong advocacy across the country to encourage state governments from the southern part of the country to sign on to this process. And additional payment points should be created in some of the states to address the issue of overcrowding during payment. This will also ensure that payment points are made closer to beneficiaries' primary location. And then finally, NCTO should expedite action in addressing the challenge that led to the payment not happening in a state, particularly like Edo State. They were not paid. The reason why they were not paid are obvious, and that need to be addressed quickly as possible so that those who are supposed to benefit from Edo State and the other 7 states can also access their money.
But Nigerians are concerned that the sustainability of this might be a challenge, and so the government perhaps should be looking at focusing on critical infrastructure that Nigerians can benefit from, especially when it comes to creation of jobs.
You know, when Abacha 2 was designed, it was with a focus on the social protection program, the cash transfer program. Abacha 3 now is focusing on legacy projects like the 3 major projects I mentioned earlier on. And one of those legacy projects is the Abuja-Kano Road, and then the second one is the Lagos-Ibadan Road, and the third one is the second Niger Bridge. Those are major infrastructural projects. Now, the two are very important. Investing in the poor is very important. Investing in infrastructure is very important. Both are aimed at addressing development in the country. There's no one that is more important than the other. What is more important is about priority. Government has responsibility to address the issue of poverty in the country, and social protection program is a major option that government adopts around the world, including Brazil, Egypt, all the countries around the world. They are investing in their poor so that at least the inequality that exists can be addressed. Because once you have too many poor people in the country, you cannot talk about productivity.
And from what you have observed since you've been monitoring this, is this really addressing the inequality?
You see, Rome was not built today. We need to start from somewhere. Like I said, the number of poor people in the country is intimidating. As a matter of fact, you've heard that Nigeria is the headquarters of poverty in the world. So now, little money that has come from recovered assets won't be able to address the issue. Now, our government have only allocated 500 billion to social protection program in Nigeria. Is that amount enough? If you look the amount of money that government spend to run bureaucracy in Nigeria, is unacceptable. The COVID-19 have again exposed how government has poorly invested in the health sector. If we are to increase our capital investment in human development, government must make a deliberate policy, and that again brings to the political will of the leadership of the country. The amount of resources that is going for the poor is very small because they are not vocal, they are not organized, and people take an advantage of it. If you look the amount of money government spend in taking care of the member of the National Assembly, compare that amount to what goes to the poor in the country, is unacceptable. It's shameful. The amount that goes to the poor is unacceptable. Nowhere in the world that you treat your poor the way Nigeria treats the poor in the country.
All right, David Ugola, thank you so much for speaking with us.